We are live.
Thank you very much for joining us today for our Get Going with Google Admin Console session. We've got a really great session planned for you today, and we're going to take you through on a whistle-stop tour of the Admin Console.
So I think before we get started, we probably need to introduce ourselves. I'll start off. For those of you that don't know me, my name's John. I live in Switzerland. I'm the GG leader for GG Switzerland. I'm not a teacher, I'm a techie. I've worked in IT for almost 20 years now. That's about it for me. Abid, do you want to let everybody know who you are?
Yes, I'm Abid Patel. I'm an IT director from London, UK. I've been working in IT for nearly 16 years now, and I've been managing the Google Admin Console for my multi-academy trust, or equivalent of a district of schools in the UK since 2017.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jay Strumwasser, EdTech Jay on all the different social media platforms. I'm a director of technology in New York State, and I've been in the EdTech space for quite a number of years as well. I've also been a teacher and a consultant, so I've done it all and all different types of classes, and I'm excited to be here, and I'm going to be helping out in the back end of the program, and if there's any questions, I'll be answering as well. Nice to meet everyone.
And good day, everyone. My name is John Mansell-Pladel. I now live in Ohio, but I spent a lot of my early career in Australia, and I was actually born in England, so I'm kind of a citizen of the world. I work in Northwest Ohio, and I manage a Department of Educational Technologists, and we serve school districts in 6 counties in Northwest Ohio. And I also am helping with the GEG of Ohio, and we will be doing the session. That's Jay and I, the United States based people, will be doing the session next week on Wednesday. So hope you all learned something good today, and welcome to what hopefully will be a good learning experience for you.
Thanks a lot, John and Jay. So yeah, just like John touched on upon today, we've got 2 of these sessions planned. This one was more sort of UK and Europe friendly timings, and then next Wednesday we've got another session planned, which will be more US friendly time. And so John Gerhardt and I will be running this session, and John and Jay will be taking the session next Wednesday. But John and Jay will be in the chat right now, so if you've got any questions, please fire them away, and John and Jay will be happy to help. And then we'll also take questions in throughout or at the end. We've got a team from Global Geg backstage handling that, so feel free to ask any questions. But for now, John and Jay, thanks, and we'll see you guys in a bit.
So we'll get down to looking at the admin console. Just a couple of training aims for you then. We wanted to highlight at the beginning, this is one of our very first sessions, and the idea of this session is to just give you an overview of what the admin console is, where you can find it, the general ethos of it, its structure, and some of the core G Suite apps that are controlled by it. The idea is not that you come out of this thinking you could admin a whole massive 10,000 student domain. After it, we're going to show you some slides, and we'll do individual sessions that deep dive into certain sections. So they will be going over the next following months. So really today is to get those that have never really seen the Google Admin Console. I want to know what it is and how it works under their belt, and then later on we'll get some more exciting and juicy aspects of it. It is quite a big product, as you're about to find out. So I think we've got about 59 people live at the last count, so that's great. It's great to have you. Get those questions posted in the live chat, and we're going to get started. So the idea of the session as well is we're going to show you some hands-on. I've got an admin console sitting here to be able to show you hands-on. Shout out or type out in the chat if you've got questions. Please be as liberal as you want. We will answer as many of them we can live, and if we can't answer them live, we'll get back to you privately and try and answer them. So you've got all of that on the slide, and I think there's enough of me talking about what we're going to do. We're going to actually look at it, and Abid is going to start us off with the first slides.
Cool. Thank you very much. So, what is the G Suite Admin Console? So, for those who might not be aware, a lot of the educators will be familiar with the G Suite core apps that they use on a regular basis. So we've got the Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, Drive, Classroom, Gmail. Those are the apps that make up the core suite of the Google platform. But just like most IT systems, so where you might have a Windows system at your schools or districts, there is an admin panel to the platform, and that's kind of where all of the sort of magic happens. And so the admin platform, the admin console is used to create users, set up mobile devices, deploy apps and extensions. So all of that kind of stuff takes place in the admin console. And then the purpose of this session that John really wanted to nail down on was the fact that we want to inform educators of kind of what's possible in the admin console. What does it do? You know, when we kind of feel those sort of frustrations that, oh, I wish G Suite something Docs could do this, or I wish Gmail could do that, or I wish Classroom could do this. The purpose of these sessions is to kind of show you a basic intro into what is actually possible. And like John said, this will be kind of a whistle-stop overview, but there will be more opportunities to go into each utility directly in later sessions. So first things first, how do you get to the admin console? It's simply put, just like you would docs.google.com and sheets.google.com and mail.google.com. To get to the admin console, it's admin.google.com. Now, more likely than not, as we've said, you probably won't be able to get onto the admin console if you're not a super admin, because only super admins or someone who has an admin role will be able to get to the admin console. If you try to access the admin console, you'll see a message to say you don't have access to this. So when you go to the admin console, this is the screen that you'll see. Well, I'll show you the screen that you'll see in a minute. But the main screen you'll sort of see is what's known as the dashboard, and that's all of the utilities that you have access to within the Google Admin Console. So if I browse over to my admin console here, so this is my trainer domain admin console, and as you can see, this is the live view that everyone will sort of see when you log in first, and we'll be going into deeper detail in some of these, but this is relatively stayed the same over the last few years. Google do make an awful lot of tweaks to the back end of the admin console. So as you go deeper and deeper into some of the apps, you'll see changes and subtle changes that Google tend to make. But in my experience over the years that I've been managing the admin console, it's kind of stayed like this. And then these are kind of this is kind of like a brief overview as to what each of those features do. So users and they, you know, most of them are quite self-explanatory. So, you know, users are adding and removing users, putting them into organizational units, giving them certain sets of privileges, assigning email aliases. That tends to fall under the banner of users. You've got apps. So when you want to manage the settings in your G Suite apps, so in Drive, in Gmail, Calendar, that kind of stuff that happens in apps. Company profile is where you put information about your company. You can put your name, your language, your time zone, your logo, data protection, contacts, and things like that. That goes in company profile. Billing you won't have to worry too much about in the G Suite admin domain, so G Suite for Education domain, because it's free for all users. You will, if you're a Google for Education trainer, you'll probably take one look at that to see whether or not you've been authorized as a trainer. Device management, that's where you look after all of your Chromebook devices. So if you've got Chromebooks, they're managed in the admin console. And then John will be looking at some of the other things that are in there as well. But as you can see, these are sort of pretty self-explanatory in terms of what they do and the features they use. So navigation. So the admin console is very, very deep, very, very detailed, and it is sort of a maze of stuff and what you can sort of do. And one thing that is really useful, and people tend to forget this quite a bit amongst all of the G Suite apps in my experience, is it's Google. And so, you know, Google are famous for search, and believe it or not, they're quite good at it. And one thing that is really useful to know is, as you get more and more familiar with the admin console, and as you tend to start to work with the admin console, there'll be things that you're wanting to do, and you'll find that as you go through the admin console, there's a whole load of menus you have to go through to get there. But what's really great about the navigation, so if I show you an example here, a really useful, a really common one that we get is, a fellow teacher at another district has created a Google Classroom, but when I tried to join, I couldn't get into it. And so what needs to happen is the admin, the IT admin, what they need to do is they need to whitelist the domain of the person who's trying to join your classroom. So if I wanted to go through that setting in the menus, it would be going through apps, going through G Suite, going through Classroom, and then finding the settings in whitelist domains. Or alternatively, I can simply type in whitelist domains, and I'm not even finished typing, and you can see it comes up. There's an option there to whitelist domains. Similarly, if you're looking for something like sharing options, as I type sharing, you can see there's all these options, whether I want to allow link sharing and sharing options and all sorts of other features. So it's really handy to always remember the search box, and it will get you out of a lot of headache trying to search through things deep and dirty into the admin console. So first, we'll take a look at organizational units and what organizational units are and why you sort of need organizational units. So organizational units are basically kind of like folders that you have under your domain. So what you'll see, if you're an admin, if you're a Google certified trainer, you'll have a trainer domain, something along the lines of gtrainerdemo.guideme.cloud, like we've got here, and that is your top level domain, sometimes abbreviated to TLD, but that's a top level domain. So basically everything happens underneath this domain. Then you can see here all of these items you've got here. These are all organizational units. So ALPS, Cool, I Love Google, that kind of stuff. That's all basically organization units. Think of them as folders. And then in each folder, that's where you would normally put your users or things like that. That's what makes up an organization unit. Organization units are really good because, and it's really important that when you're setting up your domain, you set it up like this properly and strategically for the first time, because then that will help you as you go further on applying settings. So say, for example, I'll show you my my school district one. So I've got my two schools here. Underneath my schools, I've got staff and I've got students. Underneath students, I've got all the different year groups of students. And what's really useful here is if I wanted to apply a particular setting, so a common one for distance learning is we want all of our staff to be able to create Google Meets and join Google Meets, but we don't want our students to be able to create Google Meets of their own, but we still want them to be able to join. So what we do is we basically say that we would apply the settings for Google Meet on the staff organization unit, but we would also apply the setting to not allow students to join a Google Meet on the student organization unit. And so it makes it a lot more easier to manage and control the way we want to do it. I'll show you an example here in my trainer domain. If I go into organization units, this is much sort of cleaner, but it's simply put, there's the way to create organization units. I can say, click on the big yellow plus button there and say that this is an organization unit called, let's call it Google Training. And the description is this will be where I create training accounts. And so you can see what the parent organizational unit is. So my top level domain is called Abid Patel. And so basically this Google Training unit, when I click create, what's going to happen is it's going to create the organization unit under Abid Patel. It's told me that it's created the organization unit. One thing you might learn is the Google Admin Console isn't very handy at refreshing. So a quick refresh and you see there. And a good thing that you can do is you can then create sub units, so sub organizational units. So if I click on where I want to create the sub organization unit, I can say click on plus there, and then I can say let's call it sub OU, and then that will be this is under Google Training. And then once I click on create, you can see it's created the sub-organizational units. If I refresh again, it's created the sub-organizational unit underneath Google Training. So that's basically what how you would sort of create a structure. So it's really important to remember that when you're at the very start of sorting out your Google admin domain, is to map out what you want your structure to look like. And so that will make your life a lot easier further on, not having to move accounts between domains. So that's the one thing to note with the organization units.
Abid, you've got a question from the live audience there about whether you can have multiple domains inside the admin console. So if you had 4 schools, could you have 4 different schools sort of connected to the same admin console?
Yes. So I don't have an example here, but I know that there are very large districts around the US, and we've got large multi-academy trusts within the UK, where you have the holding trust, or the district will be the top level domain, and then you'll have multiple school domains underneath that. And that's really useful for when there's an IT team working at district level and they want to apply a setting all the way down across the entire organization. Then basically that's where having multiple domains work. So it's kind of similar to organization units, but it's just rather than domain and then organizational units, you'll have domains, subdomains, and then organizational units. So it is possible to have that. And yes, that's a really great question.
So well, I think we've got 77 people watching live now. So that is really, really good. It's nice to see something. It's 79. I must have jumped everybody forward.
Cool. Right, so let's move over to users. So users, pretty self-explanatory, and we'll all have experienced it being users of G Suite, but the users section is where you would create your user accounts. So I think I'll go straight in, and I'll go back to the admin console page. So you can always return back to the dashboard just by clicking on the admin button in the top corner there, or you can also click on the waffle and then go to admin. And when you click on that, it will always take you back to this admin dashboard. You can also go into the burger menu or the pancake menu, depending on what you like to call it. And then there's your dashboard option here. Now, where I wanted to get into users, I would simply on the dashboard, click on users. Again, you can go in the burger menu and then go to directory, and you'll see a few options here as well, users and organizational units. Those again will just take you to the same place, but obviously one click, easy access just by clicking users. So here you go. Here's my users. Now, immediately you'll see on the screen here, you'll see these are all of the users that I've got in my entire domain. So these are the users that I've got in my entire domain, regardless of what organizational unit they're in. If I want to see users in a particular organizational unit, I would click on the organizational unit, and then that's where you would see this particular test student is in the students folder. If I go to teachers, you'll see there's no one in this one. If I go to home, you'll see I've created an account for my daughter in home. If I go to administrators, you'll see my admin accounts in the administrators. But if I go to the top level domain, you'll see all of my users there over here. That'll show all the users. Now, simply put, to create a user, the best thing to do is always go to the folder where you want to create the user. So if I click on Google Training, I can click on Google Training, and then I've got the option here to add new user. A question that we've had earlier on is about bulk uploading users. So if you wanted to upload an entire year group of users, you can use the bulk upload option. That will allow you to import a CSV sheet, and then basically it'll give you some instructions as to what to do, and then you can upload. If I click on bulk upload, it gives you the instructions. So you can download the CSV template, and then you would attach it back up if you wanted to do that. Another thing that you can do with the admin console, and I know a lot of schools and districts will do, one thing that I do is we have a synchronization provider. So for our school management information system, MIS as we call them in the UK, I think they call them SIS in the States. Basically, what they will do is they will connect your Google console to your SIS or your MIS, and then as staff and students automatically join your organization, the user accounts will get created automatically. So it's a really handy tool that you don't have to create user accounts, and you don't have to delete user accounts for when people join and leave your organization. But for now, we'll take a look at adding a brand new user. So simply put, we'll add a brand new user. We will call this one Joe Blogs. And so it gives me the option to create their primary email account. The primary email account will be the email account that they will use to log in to G Suite. So if I say I'll call this one joe.blogs, and then I can choose what domain they'll have. So I've got 3 domains here. I've got abidpatel.com, I've got gtrainerdemo.abidpatel.com, or I've got itjustworks.uk. For this example, I'll choose abidpatel.com. So when this particular user will log in to G Suite, they'll have joe.blogs@abidpatel.com. And that will be their main username. Now, I can set the option to automatically generate a password. If I do that, what will happen is, in fact, I'll demonstrate it now. If I click on Add New User, there'll be an option here now where I can say this is Joe Blogs account. I can show I can click on this and it'll show what the password is, or I can alternatively email login info. If I go to more actions and email login info, what will happen is I can choose to send Joe on their personal email account this email. And what will happen is we'll send them this email, and they'll have a secure sign-in button over here. And so when they click on that button, it will enable them to create their own password when they log in for the first time. So I will go to cancel that for now. I'll go back in again, and then let's just say, let's do this again, Joe blogs and joe.blogs. And then what I'll do is I can give them my own password. And so I can basically say that the password has to have eight characters. You can change it in the admin console that you can change a password policy if you want more than 8 characters, but the minimum in the admin console has to be 8 characters. You can also ask whether you want to have a change at the next when they sign in for the first time, but I'll leave that. And of course, it already exists, so I'll just say Joe Smith. Add new user, and you can see their account has been created. So that's basically user accounts. If I go into the user, there's a whole load of things that you'll see over here where you can assign admin roles. So if I wanted to make this admin person a super admin, I would just tick that button there. And then you can do all sorts of other things. You can change the security, you can change what apps they have access to. If you want to add an email alias, you go into user information and add an email alias. If you want to rename the user, so renaming the user, let's say, for example, Joe got married and changed his or her surname, I would just change that here, change their primary email address. The thing to remember is if you change this here, then the user account that they use to log in will change to whatever you put here. Other things, simply reset password. If you need to reset a student password, you would do that there. And then also, if you go into the more section, there's options to suspend the user or delete the user or change the organization unit. So the best thing to do is have a play, and then you'll see all of the settings that and the options that you have within the admin console.
Would somebody there just ask, what would you sort of expect a setup for somebody inside a training domain? Are you going to have 500 users? You're going to create one for each person that's coming to your training, or you're going to maybe have a demo teacher, demo student, or what would you recommend?
So what I tend to do is when we run sessions, we'll obviously send a sign up form. And then once we've got that sign up form, we'll use the names from that sign up form to populate the CSV, like I showed you, and then we would just upload that into the admin console, and then from there you can then bulk create user accounts, and then you would just assign those. You can assign all of them the same password. That's what we tend to do. A popular one for when we run training is Go Google, for example. So we'll create a if our domain is test domain, I'll create a username, first name dot surname at testdomain.org, for example. So it'll be abid.patel at testdomain.org, john.gerhardt at testdomain.org. And then we'll set the passwords, and then that's how my recommendation. But it's entirely up to you as to how you really want to do it.
I think I agree with you because number of trainings. I think if you end up going in and you have 5-10 people log on, the demo teacher and demo student, you don't get to see the collaborative nature of Google if you're using a standard account. So the joy of the training domain is it's a real educational domain. You can have 10,000 users in there. Nobody's going to say anything. You're not paying per user. So go mad. Use the bulk CSV upload. Get yourself a user per session and get everybody with logging on and enjoying Google and understanding the collaborative nature of Google.
Yeah. The question that's been highlighted from Robin, can I change the name of my domain? Technically, the answer would be yes. I would highly recommend you don't do that. it can get very, very messy. If you decide you want to have a different domain, you can always add multiple domains to your G Suite domain. You don't have to have one domain. So where you saw when I went to create a new user, if I show you in the email aliases, if I just say, for example, you can see here in my particular admin console, I have actually added 3 domains. If I say, for example, I sign a new domain called, let's say, coronavirus.com, because that's what's popular right now. Elsewhere in the admin console, I would go through all of the authentication steps to add that domain. But once I've added that domain into my console, I'll have the option to have the 4th domain here. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't any restriction on how many domains you can have within the admin console.
Now, Georgina's saying there that she's used Trainer Domain to be able to create accounts, and then using them across parents and board members. I think now you've got a Trainer Domain, or when you've got a Trainer Domain, go mad, use it, because you can really help people understand and be sure that you're not going to show any information from your domain that maybe shouldn't get out there. It's a Trainer Domain, it's nice and safe, and you can get people playing and not worry about breaking anything in there. So really use it.
And also remember that it is a fully fledged live G Suite domain. So if you ever get stuck, you've got 24/7 support from Google. And I'll show you quickly if I share my screen again. If you go into the admin console and then you click on the question mark in the top right hand corner there, you can click on contact support, you can click on phone, and you can say, for example, help. Click on the button there. It'll ask you a whole load of suggestions. If you just simply say that didn't help, continue to support, and what will happen is you will get a whole load of numbers that you can call, that you can basically use to call and speak about about your admin domain. So it's really handy if you ever need to basically ask Google for help. It's an option that's there for you, ready 24/7, 365 days a year.
So Cindy's just asked there, do the notes from the support get saved? I think you get an email when you finish the support, so you have a chat with them. So when you get to the end, you get an email saying exactly what you chatted about. So it's really, really good.
Cool. John, did you want to take it away from groups?
Yeah, I'm ready for groups. So I'm going to continue a couple of these slides now. So it's gone through the sort of structure and the users and how you set up a hierarchical structure. Google Admin Console, and really the base of the whole Google infrastructure is groups. You're probably familiar with them in the sense of an email group or a group you're sharing, or a group you're sharing your classroom with. This is how it is actually set up. And this is how an admin would go in and create a group and add people into that. So there are, again, no limits at all on the number of groups you can create in a domain, and a group can be made up of anybody. It can be made up of only staff, it can be a mix of staff and students, a mix of year 4 and year 3, or just year 4. So you can really mix and match your users. You can then use that to share things with them, to then email them, and also apply policies inside the Google Admin Console. So this is really a powerful tool. So we'll do a quick live demo on this. So if we go back to our admin console and we click on from the dashboard groups there, we come into the group section, and I've logged out of my domain because I've not done anything for ages. So we're inside the group section. Here's the trainer domain, so I've not got much in there. But if we go to create a group, it's just the same as creating a user. So we can create a group called My Test Group with a little description. There's a test, and then you come up with the email. So this email obviously can't be duplicated with the user. So if you've got a user called John at, you can't have a group called John at, otherwise it'll be a duplicate. So you can come up with some naming convention maybe for that. So you create the new group, and a group always has a notion of an owner. So I'll add me as the owner. Once you've created a group, there's a whole host of settings which we're going to go through in another deep dive session on who can see what, who can delete members, allow members, change the settings, who can email it. There's a lot in there, and there's a lot for you to learn on that. And if you're interested in the deep dive sessions, do come in. But for the moment, we're not gonna go too deep into that. So you see, I've created my new group here called Test Group, and then inside here we can add a member. At the moment, I'm a member, and I'll add one of my colleagues there into it. So you build up your group and your structure like that. And that is a really core tool that you're probably used to seeing on the user side, and this is how it's set up inside the admin console. So all those groups now that you're seeing, you can see exactly what the difference and how it's applied. So Georgina's asking the difference between an OU and a group. An OU, a user can be a member of only one OU. So an OU is a completely hierarchical structure. Whereas a group, a user can be a member of as many groups as you want. So Abid showed you before the users, let's go back to the dashboard, showed you the organizational units. So a user has to fit underneath one. It cannot be in multiple ones. But the groups, a user can be a member of many groups. So the organization units is more for setting a structure for your organization, staff, students, year groups, faculty, admin, finance, that sort of thing. And groups is then for more the day-to-day running of sharing and emailing and how you're contacting people. So I hope that clears that up. So we've created some groups there. We've been through it. My recommendation on creating them: be organized, else it goes absolutely mad. Have as few groups as possible. But they are a very useful tool. We're going to go on to some apps now. Apps means lots of things to lots of different people inside of the G Suite admin console. Apps is talking about services more. There are apps which you know as sort of standard G Suite items, which are Calendar, Classroom, Drive, Gmail, Meet, all the standard stuff. These are our core apps. Core apps are apps that Google support you with directly. So it means you can use, as Abid showed before, the little question mark on the top, and they can have core support from them. There are then a whole host of other third-party apps which you can also control from the admin console, but Google won't support you directly with them. They are linked either with a third-party company, or they are other Google tools which they don't provide a 24-hour support on them. So you can see them listed. The only thing under the G Suite tab there is a core app, and they're the stuff you're used to seeing day-to-day: Calendar, Classroom, Drive, Doc, Gmail. And if I click on the additional Google services or services, you can see things like Google App Maker, Blogger. They are listed here, and they are supported and controllable, but they are not supported in the same sort of way as a 24-hour support. And there are a number of Google services in here, and then you lots of third-party ones that you can get as well. So the idea of an app is it's a service, and as you can see here, it's turned on or off. You can decide on OU level or by group whether an app is available for your users. So at this point, I'm going to show you, to make it a bit clearer, some of the core apps. If I wanted to say, I tell you what, all my students, they should not have Calendar. I don't want them to mess around with Calendar. You can come in here, you can click on Calendar, and I can say, I want it off. Okay, and as simple as that, anybody that exists underneath the student OU will now no longer have access to Calendar. If you click on the actual Calendar app, then you come up with a number of other services and settings, which we're going to look again in the deep dive. I cannot go through all of that now, but there are hundreds of settings, thousands of settings available. And you can go right down to say, for example, that students can't join meets, can't create meets, students can't share publicly, but staff can. There are hundreds and thousands of settings. So as I'll go through the slides at the end, we'll do some deep dives and you can come in and find out exactly what's going on in some of these sections. So the idea of Take It Home Fair is just that there are core apps and there are lots of settings associated with them, and we can control these on an OU level, an organizational unit, and also onside the by groups, so we can turn them on and off with groups. It's a good little point there from Abid and the comments there. Also, all of the core stuff is all GDPR, COPPA, FERPA, all of the compliance stuff, whereas the third-party ones, that's up to you to do your checks and verify that. So the next little exercise before how are we doing for time? 18:40 or 40 minutes. So we're getting down. I don't want you to get bored of Abid and me talking, so we'll wing through some of these. This is devices. This is
John, before we move on to devices, there were just a couple of questions. One from Georgina. So are apps automatically turned on or off when G Suite releases them into domains?
As far as I know, it's a very good question. As far as I know, and Albert, you correct me if I'm wrong, they are generally on for everyone. I've never seen it. It is announced. I don't know if you see inside the blogs that come out, the G Suite update blogs, which is very useful for somebody that wants to see what's coming out. This explains exactly what's being released. And if you scroll down to the bottom, this is quite a long one here, it'll tell the rollout pace, how quickly it's coming out, and it'll say for admins here what it means. And you'll see, maybe if I might be lucky to find one that mentions it, but it'll say it's active for all users. Generally it is. I can't remember ever seeing one that isn't turned on by default as they come out. So you can look in it and be ready to turn it off if you don't have it available.
I know that we've run a lot of training sessions on Jamboard quite recently, and a lot of people have said, I can't access Jamboard, and that's probably because the service has been switched off when you access after it's been in the domain. So they're not normally switched off, like John said. In my experience, things haven't been switched off, and what tends to happen is you find most IT teams will switch things off. One really popular thing for schools that are coming onto G Suite as a new sort of thing is, for example, the first thing they'll do is turn Gmail off, because they're already using their own email system, and they're not sort of ready to switch over yet. So they'll have everything else on, but they'll switch Gmail off, and then they'll switch it on later on when they're ready to migrate all of their existing emails over.
Great. So I hope, Georgina, that answers your question. So generally they are available. I'm just seeing if I could find, there you go. It's a great question. I've actually found the Jamboard released one, and Jamboard went on as off. So that is why lots of domains are having problems, and I've never noticed that. So Jamboard did actually get activated, and so any districts that don't have it will have had to turn it on as it went in as off by default. So they're just going in here, and you can actually see in my trainer domain that it's off, and they just have to click and say turn on for everyone, turn on, and then that Jamboard is then available for anybody under the organizational unit that was selected. So it's literally, you've seen for the admin, it's 4 seconds activated. And
you'll have seen the brief message there when John turned it on that said it can take up to 24 hours. That's a very, the Google Admin Console is very good at lying to you. In my experience, things have normally turned on within almost instantly or within 5 minutes, but there've also been occasions where it's taken way longer than 24 hours, and it's usually a case of you need to wait that full 24-hour period before going over to Google support if you're having any issues. But it's just something to bear in mind. It doesn't tend to happen that much, and usually most things happen instantly, but things can take time depending on how overloaded Google servers are.
Yeah, I think I've had experience the same as you have. It's either instant or over 24 hours. So yeah, it's interesting. So we've done apps. Thanks for your questions, Georgina. That was a fantastic question, because I've learned something there. I had not realised that they had ever launched any service that wasn't on by default. So I've learned something this evening. So we've gone through apps and we're on to devices now. This is quite a humongous section of the G Suite admin console. For those of you that like technical terms, the G Suite Admin Console is an MDM, or a mobile device management tool, so it can control Apple iPhones, Android. That is a completely massive topic that obviously we can't get into now, but I want you to sort of understand that there is also a management of Chrome. So for those of you that sign in on the top right, I'm in incognito mode here, so you can't see, but you normally have your face, your avatar at the top right, and then you get bookmarks and all sorts of other things that can be controlled by your district. So, I've got some bookmarks here that are provided to me by the domain. There are a raft of settings, from if you allow pop-ups in Chrome, what the home page should be in Chrome, what extensions are installed. There is a massive amount of settings that you can use, and they will be subject in another deep dive if you'd like to come to that. So we're really just giving you a general heads up that the device section is there, and that it is a very powerful section. It's found again under the home screen, the dashboard, and then devices. And this, we're starting to go down the rabbit warren here. It's a massive section. If I click quickly on Chrome management, this is probably the one that's interesting. This is just the settings that are available for the management of Chrome. You can see how big my scroll bar is there. This is just the management of Chrome. So if I pick randomly one here, whoop, so we can decide whether notifications, or we're going to allow the user to decide, we're going to not allow them, we're going to always ask the user. There are hundreds and thousands of settings in here. And this is going to be subject of a deep dive later on. So we can go through all of that. But just for the minute, know that it's there. Know that there are a lot of settings that can be controlled, and that can affect how your end users perceive the use of Chrome. I had a case where a school had added the homepage, thinking that it seems like a good idea, adding the homepage, but that meant it overrid your own tabs. So every time you close Chrome and open it again, it would open the homepage and not your tabs. And that was really frustrating for people who'd set up all their tabs to prepare their lessons. So it's also a fantastic, powerful tool, but it needs to be used correctly so as not to frustrate people. So play with it in your trainer domain first. A little heads up for the company panel inside the admin dashboard. Is a little visited area called company profile, but it's quite interesting, less so if you're to train the domain, but for your main domain, because this is really exactly the base of your contact details. So the only key thing that I would say for anybody, in order to keep access to your domain, if you happen to forget your admin password, your super admin password, and you're completely locked out, if you can keep a secondary email address in here, which is obviously off your domain, well, I think they enforce that, then you might be able to get back into your account a lot easier. So as soon as you've set up your domain, put that in my little tip of the day, and that should help if you ever forget your password. So just go in there, have a look, and verify all the information is right. It's like general things like time zone, whether your features are on a scheduled or rapid release. So I'm actually on a scheduled release here. That means it comes out 1 to 2 weeks slower than rapid release. You can see inside the blog the release track where things are signed. So Jamboard will be this one, and they'll tell you the dates that it's going to come out for rapid release. Can't see it there exactly, but there are different timings. Rapid release basically means it comes out instantly when it's available, and scheduled allows you to be a bit more reticent and check and train it on a training domain, and then release it a bit later inside your admin console. So just a quick heads up to have a look in there and fill in your email address. We're getting towards the end of this sort of overview. 71 people still watching. It's great to have you all with us. Now, one of the final sections that I want to go through is the security section, and then we'll do reports. So security section again is a massive section which we'll do a deep dive on. Some of the things that you can control in here are whether you have two-factor authentication, the type of password, some of the data protection, the alerts that are sent out. It's really big in there, and the stuff in here can have wide-ranging impact on your users. So it's also, on the training domain, go mad, do what you want. But if you have access to a district domain or your school domain, maybe think twice before turning on too many settings without being 100% sure what they're going to do. So again, back to the dashboard, we can click on security here, and we've got the whole list. What is really nice is, again, if I take password management as an example, when we click down here, we get back to this sort of familiar structure now, where we have organizational units, and we can say, hey, we don't want to be too mean to our students. We'll say they can have a minimum length of 6 and a maximum length of 100. Oh, people won't allow that. We can say that let's be mean to our staff. Let's do something different. We'll say staff, they need 10. We want our domains to be strong. We're going to make sure staff have 10. We're going to enforce a strong password, and we're not going to allow them to reuse their password. So that now is applied on the staff level. But if we click back on students, then you can see that they still have it applied as 8, and they can reuse your password, and it never expires. So you can get the base of this console working off organizational units and groups. And when you come into these sections, if you understand that, you can apply these settings across the organizational units, and it's very, very powerful. Once you've got used to this structure, the amount of combinations of what you can do, you can normally answer yes when people say, I don't want this, or I do want this, and I only want this for certain users. You can go back to them and say, yeah, I can do this. I can make teaching and learning better because of these settings, and be able to put them down to a certain section. Now, what's next on the list? The only thing I said before is maybe just it's a fine line to walk about how strict you are inside these settings, whilst keeping your domain secure, but then allowing your staff to work unhindered. So test it in your domain, your trainer domain, and then if you're an admin of a school domain, be sure that you've talked it through before you start touching some of these settings. The final section that we're going to look at in this global overview today is reports. This is again a massive section, but a very, very interesting section. I've got a screenshot now of a domain that I have access to, which has got some traffic in it, because if you look at my GTrainer domain, I don't really use it that much, and that means there's nothing exciting for you to appear. Where's reports gone? There it is. So if you can see here, I basically have nothing going on in the trainer domain. But if you start looking at this domain, you can probably see where dips will be. Probably guess that these might be school holidays, and you can see that how links are shared, user statuses. So if you start looking at this, it's a great place to gauge how your domain's being used, and then react to that. Are too many documents being shared public? How many users have two-factor active? Did the email that I sent to the head teacher go through? Because all of the logs for the emails appear here. So if you want to find, you don't see the content of the email, I'd like to stress that. You can really just search by sender and by recipient and find out where emails are going, but you can't see the content of it. You can see the email headers, which is a very useful tool as an admin to work out what's going on. Is Classroom being used? Are all of our students using Classroom? You can get yourself into Classroom and go back to reports, and then there's a whole section down here for auditing Classroom. Let's audit calendar because I can't find Classroom quickly. It's up there, that's fine. So if we go back one, we can load page. We can load the Classroom statistics. You're going to see nothing because I haven't got Classrooms in here, but you can see active classes, classes created, posts created in Classrooms. This really gives you a gauge on what's happening inside your domain. So it's a really, really useful tool. I think we're sort of coming to the end of our overview. I hope it's been useful. We've still got almost 70 people watching, so not too many people have disappeared. So that's great. The idea now, just give you a quick overview of the deep dive sessions that we're going to have. So we're calling these sort of going further section, where we'd expect much fewer participants. Maybe it'll be done with Meet or YouTube. We'll see how it goes when we send up sign-ups for that with Global GG. So a first one, a classic, looking at Gmail deep dive, looking as deep as you want to go. We've got some really talented people, and they're willing to share their knowledge of these different sections. So we can look at routing and all sorts of techie stuff, and the more simpler stuff with signatures and stuff for Gmail. Then master and driving docs, so looking at how you can restrict sharing, transfer ownership, restricting add-ons that people can use. Use a tool called Vault. It's a sort of probably causes dread in lots of IT admins' voices when you say Vault. It's a very powerful tool which is included in the G Suite for Education subscription, and it allows you to get any document back and view any document. It's a powerful tool when used correctly. So we're going to do a deep dive into that. Some stuff, Meet is obviously big on the agenda at the moment, so we can do a deep dive in all the settings of Meet, turn it on and off for students, keep it on for staff, turning off video by default. There's all sorts of things that you can look at configuring Meet, so that's a subject of a deep dive. The Chrome Sync, which is the devices that I looked at before, there's thousands of settings in there to decide what you can do inside Chrome when the user's logged on, from pop-ups to extensions, all sorts of things. Classroom, a classic as well, managing a classroom, deep dive into that. The list goes on, calendar, team drives, sites. So these will all be single sessions that you can sign up to over the coming months and really look at them in more detail with somebody that knows them well. So as I said, they're coming. We're working on it. Don't expect them tomorrow, but we'll be preparing these sessions over the next months, and the training team will get that out to you via Global GEG. I'm conscious I haven't answered very many questions. It's difficult to chat and answer.
We'll bring John and Jay back in case there's any questions. I just want to signpost everyone as well. Please do leave us feedback. We really value your feedback, and we will definitely use that to shape the next sessions we have. We're going to be, as we said at the start, for those of you who might have missed it, we will be repeating this session again with John and Jay next week. It will be repeating it at 3 p.m. Eastern time in the USA. That's 8 p.m. here in the UK, 9 p.m. in mainland Europe, and I think it's 12 p.m. Pacific. So please do join us again. I'm sure John and Jay will have their own take on the admin console, and they will have seen some of the questions in the chat, which they'll be able to integrate in the session. We've also had loads of questions from any trainers. So if you do have your own trainer domain which you're setting up, then and you need help setting that up, please fill out that form, and someone will definitely be able to assist you. I think we're going to be running some sessions maybe, and that might be more Google Meet sessions, because it's a more of a interactive thing. And at the bottom there on the ticker, you'll see the feedback form. So yeah, please do fill out the feedback form. But John and Jay, is there anything else you wanted to add? I'm just going to go through the chat and see if there's any questions we needed to pick up.
No, I would just say that based on what feedback we see, and we'd like to hear any more. The questions were great, and thank you to everyone for somehow setting us up for some of those transitions, which was great. And hopefully we'll take some of the direction that you guys have done. So thank you, Bid and John, for being the guinea pigs here.
Yeah, some really nice comments there coming in from Karen, who's feeling encouraged to set up their domain. And
And I would just encourage people that, yes, it seems like there's a lot of information. And as I posted in the chat, once you get your training domain and you spend some time just kicking the tires around in the admin console, don't be afraid of it. It warns you that you're about to change something. And really, that's the best time that you can spend. And then you will have a much better understanding of some of the problems that maybe your users are facing as you move forward with your training.
Cool. John, anything else from yourself?
No, just to say thanks to everybody for coming, and then do reach out if you've got some questions. And I'm looking forward to meeting some of you maybe in a smaller session for the deep dive. It's a really interesting topic, and I think it really makes a difference to how G Suite is used inside schools when it's set up correctly. And as trainers, I think it's a great thing for us to know how and what is available, and be able to say quickly, yeah, we can turn that on, we can turn that off, we can help and make teaching and learning easier. That's what I want people to take away from the session.
Cool. Well, all that's left to say is thank you everyone for joining us. Please do follow us on Twitter. It's at Global GEG, where you can learn more about all of the other sessions we've got coming up. We've got lots and lots of G Suite stuff coming up, as well as more admin console related stuff. And also visit our website, which is globalgeg.org. But for now, thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks Jay and John for handling the chat, and thanks John for tag teaming on the session. And we'll see everyone again soon. Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Bye everyone.